What's up, Prop Mob? Eduardo Talbert here. This is Monster Tutorials. In today's project, I'm super excited. We are making that coffin you saw on that skit. I hope you found it funny. I think they're fun to make. I don't know if they're dumb, but let me know in the comments below. But we're making that coffin that looks like a wood rustic coffin, but it's 100% made out of foam. So not 100%, the hinges are separate, but everything else is made out of insulation foam. So in the video, we'll go over how I cut it, I put it together, then how I did the effect of the wood grain, and then how I painted it. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. Oh, look. It's my zombie thumbs up. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. And there's Elvis right there. Anyway, before we start, I just wanted to say thank you for watching this video. Thanks for everybody that supports this channel. Thank you to all the Patreon patrons, because it's with your support that I can get all the tools, materials, and everything that we do in this channel. All right, enough talk. Let's get started. The type of coffin I'm making today is kind of like an old-fashioned toe pincher made out of like rustic wood. So there's not going to be like a fancy casket, just a regular coffin. So I designed it. The first thing I did was to kind of like think about the size that I wanted, because this needs to fit in the funeral hearse that I'm building, and it also needs to fit the regular prop skeletons that are like 5 feet tall. So I decided to make the coffin 6 feet long, and then it's about 2 feet wide, and there's 1 foot and 1 foot on the bottom and top. So I transferred those measurements here. Now I'm going to transfer them to a piece of foam and start cutting the top, bottom, and the sides. To cut the foam, I'm going to cut to smaller pieces in the garage because the sheets are huge, 4x8. But now I'll bring it here, and I'm going to use the hot wire foam factory bow saw, that you saw me unbox on a previous video, link below, to cut the straight lines for the sides of the coffin. Let's do that. Well, I did manage to get the whole sheet in here. It's huge still, but I'm able to get in here. So I'm going to start transferring the design onto the foam sheet and start cutting the bigger shapes. All right, I have the top and bottom right here, right? Now I gotta do the sides. The sides, I'm going to make it about 1 foot deep. I think that's more than enough. And that foot's gonna be sandwiched between the top and bottom. So I'm gonna start cutting that using the bow saw from a hot wire foam factory. Okay, so I'm ready to cut the things. So I rigged the bow saw like this, and I have a video, like I said, where it shows how I built this. But in addition to that video, what I did is I put this fence right here, and I just screwed it in there. That's 1 foot exactly to where the hot wire is. So now let's cut the sides of the coffin. Now, one thing to note with the saw is that the wire, when it heats up, it expands and stretches a little bit, and it becomes a little bit loose. If that happens, you just need to twist this arm this way, right, clockwise, and this one down here counterclockwise, and that'll add tension to the hot wire. Now don't make it too tight because you'll snap your wire. I finished cutting the 1 foot strips. I got some long ones right here and short one right here. So we're going to start cutting these to the size to do the sides of the coffin. Okay, I've cut all the pieces out. I've also marked them, so that's the bottom piece. and that part goes to the bottom and it matches a mark on the base right there. Now that I have all the pieces cut, I'm going to mark the wood planks. We're going to do this before assembling it. So I've decided to make 4-inch planks, which means on this foot tall we'll have 3 of them, right? 3 times 4 is 12. Easy. So I'm going to start marking them with a pencil, and then we're going to use the hot wire foam factory engraver to cut the grooves to make those planks look like they're separate planks of wood. That's nice and hot. And don't go too deep so we don't split the piece of foam. Okay, now I'm going to take the engraver right back there and do that to all the boards. So we're going to hit all the boards clear across, and then on the bottom I'm just doing the 3 pieces, and on the super long ones I'm going to put a cut across because I want it to be staggered, like it's multiple pieces of wood that made the coffin. Okay, so I did the division, I did the top, the bottom, and all those pieces back there. Okay, so now we go into the detailing part, and this is what makes the project like very realistic. So take your time, it's tedious. What we're going to do is texture the foam with a few tools. I have a needle, brushes, metal. We have this cutter, which is like a very thin type, and we're going to draw the grain of the wood. Right, the first thing we're going to do is the major graining of the wood, and I'm using this tool right here. I don't know what the name of it is. This is the engraver, which is a way thicker, deeper. Is why we made the divisions here, these. But this one's for and very lightly, because this thing gets really hot. Do a knot here, and all you gotta do is just knock it out of the way. Let's do a knot right here, a big one. Right, just like that. Now this right here, we can very lightly do wood grain. All right, we're also doing the edges, right? They're supposed to be real wood, so you can just knock some of these out of the way, break a piece off like that. It's a natural product and it decays. So now this needle will give you like the saw marks. So if you go like that, see how it hops instead of cutting it gives you saw marks that look really good. And you can put the saw marks in the existing grooves or make new grooves. When you get to these knots, you can pick them off with the hot tool or with your needle, right? And don't worry that it looks flaky, because we're going to fix it in a minute. There you go. Get that off of there. And the last thing we're going to do is a combination of the brushes, and this will give you the fine grain. So follow the grain, right? So I have brass and steel, and what you'll notice here, if we take this is brass, and this is steel. I don't know if you can see the difference, but it's pretty obvious how much more aggressive that is than that. So mix them a little bit too. You can do the steel one right here on this triangle. And this coming out over here. There you go. Now if you want to do some nail marks, so there's going to be some nails obviously because this was nailed, just push this in as flat as possible. Okay, so it looks like there was a nail there. Put a nail right here. Now we have a couple nail holes, right? So we're going to do this all over, mixing it up. Some are going to be more straight, some of them are going to have bigger knots. I'm going to do this all over the whole coffin, okay? So like I said, this part is tedious, it takes a long time, but check this out. That's looking pretty cool, and that was not that hard. So I'm gonna get on with that, and then we'll go to the next step. Got all these finished, right? Now we're going to do one more step, and that is we're going to hit it with a heat gun, and I'll show you why. This part is not necessary, but it helps the finish a lot. For this step, we're using our trusted heat gun here, and we're going to very lightly, hit the surface with it, but be careful because this heat will just totally melt your foam. Okay, it's going to retract really quickly. The little grooves will become bigger grooves, so it's very gentle heat to kind of like get the grain to like set. Watch this. Well, I'll do this guy right here. All that flaky stuff will melt, and the nut, as you can see, it looks like a nut. Now be careful because the heat will warp your foam, so don't hit it too much. Let's see. Now you can see all the texture coming up, right? So all this that looks like a sawed wood or like worn out decayed wood, that's what the heat gun does. Alright, I'm going to do it all over this and all over all the other pieces. But then with the heat, this will give it a nice thick shell, which makes it a little bit stiffer, which is cool for the structural, integrity of the coffin. All right, one done. 7 to go. I am finally done with the finishing of the coffin, so it's time to assemble it. So for that, what we're going to do is use some glue, and I'm going to use some toothpicks. Right, I'm going to take the toothpicks and break them in half and use them as nails. Right, so the nails are going to go through the foam to hold the coffin in place while the glue sets. As far as glue goes, there are some specialized foam glues, right, that are really good. But if you're in a pinch and you cannot get the proper glue, you go to the dollar store, this kind, but only that kind works like really well. I glued this and I cannot, no matter how hard I pull it, get it separated, and that was done with this. The only drawback with this caulk is that it takes a while to set. So when you glue it, your part starts sliding, and that's why we are using toothpicks as nails to hold it in place. Another thing I'm going to do is coat the toothpicks with this stuff, and that will become permanent. If you don't want it permanent, I want to be able to pull the toothpicks out, then don't put any glue on them. One more piece, and this bottom part is done. Another thing I did is I cut these square pieces. Right, I'm going to put these in the corners on the right angles to reinforce the coffin, because it's foam after all. This guy, I let it dry overnight. It's solid, it's pretty good. So now we get to paint it, right? So I'm going to do that outside. I haven't attached the lid yet. We'll do it after it's painted. But we're gonna go to the garage, and I'm going to use a cheap airbrush. I'm going to use the Harbor Freight $10 airbrush because I want to get into all these details with the paint, right? We want to, we worked really hard on this finish, so we want to preserve it. Using the airbrush will be like a very thin coat, and it's going to be black latex, exterior latex, mixed like 2/3 paint and 1/3 water to water it down so it flows through. The water will evaporate and it'll leave the latex paint. On the inside, I don't have to spray paint it. I'll just grab a roller or a brush and paint a nice thick black coat. Okay, so let's go do that. For the paint, I'm using this high quality but oops paint, $9 at Lowe's, right? And it's black, and it's like the good quality paint. So $9, you cannot beat that. I'm gonna mix this with water, put in one of these, and then start spraying. You saw me spraying the coffin, but I'm using a sprayer with regular latex paint. Do not use spray paint because this has a solvent. The solvent that keeps this nice and thin to fit through that tiny little hole also dissolves foam. So if you use that on your coffin, it will start melting it and you'll have no more coffin. This guy is painted all the way. So we got the base coat, and we're going to work on the details with some brown paint that I found at Lowe's. But first I'm going to put some hinges, okay, like that one, across the long side right here so that it opens. And remember, this is just a prop. It's not that sturdy, but it will help the lid open and close and stay attached to the coffin. For that, I'm going to use the same stuff on it. I'm going to glue the hinge, and then I'm going to put the screws that came with the hinge through there, and they'll grab the glue and push it into the foam, and it should have like a good bond. Again, it's foam, don't abuse the prop. It's more for like looks, right? All right. We're getting to the final steps. We get to paint it now. So like I said before, I have some brown oops paint. It's really dark. I want something lighter, so I'm going to mix it up with some white latex. That looks purple. Well, that oops paint was really oops paint. It's purple, not brown. So I went back out to Lowe's and got a sample of this. Much better. Kind of like a brown chocolate coffee kind of look, which looks more like old rotten, old weathered wood, right? Instead of the purple. The purple that looks like brown, I'll use for something else. Alright, let's get started with this then. So I'm going to put some paint right here on my tray, and we're going to use a very, very, very dry brush. Super dry. Okay, so this guy's done with the brown part. Now the last step is we're going to do some highlights with white paint. Now for these highlights, I'm using regular white paint. It's just interior latex, and I'm going to do dry brushing, but even drier than before. I'm not painting anything white. I'm just going to hit the very high spots of the wood to look like wood that has been bleached all the way. Okay. And that's how you make a foam coffin that looks like real wood. That's gonna go in my display this year. So if you think that's a cool video and a cool project, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, subscribe if you haven't, because I'm gonna try and animate that coffin in a future video. And I also will show you my display, my yard display for this Halloween in an upcoming video. So I'm Adoro Talbert. This is Monster Tutorials. We are the Prop Mob. I'll see you next time.